Hello everyone, my name is Shauba, and for the next 20 minutes I'm just gonna walk through it's kind of like a growing history of me and in art publishing. So yeah, in the beginning I just want to say when I was young, I'm just like finding so many things that really interesting. So, and also I like the form of book that there's a thing you can hold on hands and flip through the pages and into different stories. So I was thinking what kind of things that I can put those things I like together, and that's when I found a magazine that the type of magazine that I found in the bookstore, which is different from the other. These are the two examples I found when I was young. On the left one is I think it's a New York-based publisher, and this is a photo magazine. But unlike the other photo magazine, they are like curated titles, and they invited different artists to contribute their work based on that topic. And the way they added this magazine is like they showing photographs without any words or explanation or any text on it. So just like the work of the artist side by side. From the beginning to the end. And the other one on the right is the magazine from Taiwan. It's called Misk. It's like a collective with different creative workers, like the the writer for the songs, or like the designer, or like the musician. So they're together like playing a game to throw up one topic each time, and to find friends who's interested in doing this kind of contribution, and then they put all the works together. So these are two magazines that inspire me, that the magazine is not just one way to do it. There are still many different way or format to present it. So that's the time I started to want to do my own magazine. So the first project I started is called Waterfall. I want to do a magazine, but because I was still like in the university, and students always poor, so the easy way to start it up is like building a website, which costs less than like printing a book. So in the beginning, I just set up this website, and I didn't really think to do it like a magazine, but rather a curated exhibition on the website. So for each issue, I just decided a title, and to invited my friends or friends of friends who are interested in this title, or their work happen to fit in this title, so I can feature them in. So this is the period that I just work with my friends, and friends with friends, friends of friends, that they contribute to my magazine. Okay. And then, well, as I keep doing more and more magazine, I will wonder why it will happen that if I put the magazine into real life, but not into like book, but like bring all the works into actual space. So this is the time I start to think of a another way to present the work in the magazine, which is an exhibition. Well, by that time, I don't really have this knowledge to like curating a show, or like I don't know. Well, by the time I didn't know that I'm actually curating a show, a group exhibition. I just try to arrange all the works in this issue of this magazine into space, and then I find it's really interesting that how people will perceive like different from reading the contents on the internet, and between people read the works in an actual space. So this is the other thing that attract me to do more things that related to events and exhibitions besides the magazine. So after all, when I graduated from the university, I got some savings, and also I got another partner who's also interested in doing books and magazines. So in 2009, we decided to publish our first hard copy of Waterfall, and the title is actually from the line of a Japanese movie called Survive Style 5 Plus, which is really interesting question. That there's a guy who's a like British killer in that movie, and he will keep asking questions about people he met and what's your function in life. And then if he didn't get the right answer he think, he will just shoot that guy. And then, well, if you're interested in what's the ultimate answer, you can go check this movie out. It's really interesting. So yeah, that's also the question I asked myself by then. So I think it's a perfect title for me to start the real like hard copy waterfall of this issue. Yeah. So while we started to do the real print of the waterfall magazine, I moved to London to study fine arts by then. And on the other hand, my partner, he stayed in Taiwan to helping me to distributing our magazine as well. And while I was in London, I decided to do an event, which it's like a pop-up, one-night pop-up event with the exhibition and the performance by the artists. And yeah, it's just like a project space above a bar. So we just invited all the people to come in and to join the show we have. And yeah, and this is like the first time the waterfall launched its issue overseas. And then when I get back, I did another event with the launch of the fourth issue of Waterfall in Taipei, which is also a space. It's really unique. It's like a factory from the alcohol company by the government, I think. And then, well, it's transforming into like a creative space, like co-working space by then. And between that time, the company allowed us to do the exhibition and the event there. And for this event, I tried to mix two different type of music performers at the same time. Like on the first half, it's like this kind of really experimenting like sound performers, the other half is like a more like pop music singer who's playing the song. This is like a experiment for me because I want to challenge my readers, like my readers of Waterfall, how they see art or how they see the like cultural events differently. I just want to do a mix up to see how people react. And according to my friend, like the crowds who came that night, they feel the atmosphere. It's like a cult, like people gathering together for one mysterious goal or something. So you don't really get the normal vibe you will get from a like pop music concert or like a experimenting some performance. So after I got back from Taiwan, I have more friends join me to start up like a more official studio running. Besides Waterfall, we also do the publication of the artists, especially in photography, and we also like started a magazine project called Not Today, which is like six issues only magazine project, which is totally insane. I'll tell you the story afterwards. So this is the things we produce over 1 year and a half, maybe 1 year and a half. Just 2 editors and 1 designer, which is me. No, I mean just 2 people. Just I'm the editor plus designer and the other editor working with me. So yeah, this period is like the crazy time period. Like I think because we're still young by that time, so we think, okay, we want to do something exciting and we want to do something really different other than the common art magazine we see by them. So we want to like invent another type of art magazine in Taiwan, and that's why we start to do Not Today in the beginning. So yeah, apart from Waterfall, because Waterfall is more like curated, like thematic journal that we collect the works, like previous work from the artists to feature in that book. But for Not Today, it's like whole new stuff that we have to produce all by ourselves, like all the contents, all the photographs, all the words, all the translations, all the writings that we have to do it ourselves, or we have to commission the artists or writers to do it. So it's really a lot of work. So I would like to introduce this like already wrapped project. Not Today. Well, we're thinking to make Not Today as a magazine, which is a space between art and life, and in a really not like unlike magazine way. So we don't have really like the cover story on each issue. Instead we have like several sections that you can see below. We have like objects and interviews, the playlists, and a space for curator strip and so on. So I have to say it's really heavy loading for just 2 people working at a studio. Especially you have to come up all the ideas and like the artists you work with all these like sections. So when we're doing issue, the 3rd issue or the 2nd issue, we were talking about ourselves. we are like more beyond a magazine. We are more functioning as an art institution. That we even invited artists to do a residency in Taiwan for the High Taiwan section. So yeah, it's a challenge for us. Well, I would like to talk about more our sections, and because I forgot to bring the hard copies here, so I can just you can just listen how it looks like. Sorry. Yeah, for the objects, we introduced the objects that it's either artwork or like the common objects we use for like housekeeping or like everyday life function. But we show them as a piece of artwork on the magazine. But you can see the common they have, but you can also see how the uniqueness why we chose them. And for the interview, it is like the easiest part in the magazine, because you just need to decide who you're gonna visit and who you wanna talk to, and then send the writer or the photographer to them. And for the playlist, is that we invited the artist to contribute his working playlist. Like, we want to know what he's listening or she's listening to the music, so we get a sense that what he's like. Like, I think it's a way to read the artist. Like, for me, I think it's interesting to know what people are listening to when they are working. And for example, for one of the artists, Taiwanese artist Chen Jieren, I don't know if you know him. He's famous for his like video work, which always like no words, and it's like a very long shot in the film, and it's really like serious topic he's talking about. And for this artist, I asked about the playlist for him, and he didn't he doesn't listen any music when he's working, so it really makes sense that yeah. So yeah. And for a space 4, it's a project that we are playing with the concept of introducing a space. So we will invite an artist who's whether a writer or who's a photographer or who's just like a conceptual artist, and then we will ask them to present or introduce a space, a place in their own way. Like there's one example that there's a building, it's called Felix. I think it's in Amsterdam. It's like a council house, and it's owned by Felix Foundation. And there's I think back in 2014, this building was taken over by the Photography Museum for 6 months, and then we would like to introduce this special takeover. So we invited a photographer to introduce this building, and it ended up that he invited 2 of his friends dressing up in a very weird costume that made with foam. It's like an alien when they put it out, and then 2 of these figures just running up and down in that building, and they just took the photos of these characters, and then they just write some random conversations between these 2 characters. And this is one of the example we make a space for section. And the curator's trip is that we just, because, well, I got the sense that the curator is one of the people who work in the art district, got the chance to travel the most. So we just invited the curator we know to write something like it's like a diary, or there's someplace special they want to introduce. And for the kitchen, it's the section about food. So we sometimes work with the designer or artist to do whatever they want to present the food. So each issue is really different. It's always a challenge for us. And then comes to High Taiwan, which is really challenging project we're working with this magazine. Well, at first the idea is really simple, that we want to show Taiwan to our readers, but from an outsider's point of view. So we just want to invite an artist to do a really short residency in Taiwan, and we will offer some options to the artists depending on their previous parties, so they might interested in this kind of place. And then we in this project we offer the flight ticket, and we offer the accommodation, and also very minimum like material fee for them. It's I don't know how to put it, but it's really way beyond a magazine can offer, as you know it. Yeah, but I really like the result of this section. It really works well for us. But yeah, you can see more if you're interested. You can check our magazine online if you're interested. Okay, so yeah. So while we publishing all the magazines and the books of the artists, we have to do like these all kinds of promotional programs, like the talks, the workshops, or exhibitions, or even affairs. And this is like all the event photos we have. We been to like bookstores for talks, and we all even like we had a like a cooking class in a gallery for the launch of this issue of Waterfall. And yeah, I think that's the labor of it. And after we finish Not Today, which is really heavy duty for us, and the people who I work with, they decided to do something else other than publishing. So in 2016, I decided to start another project called DMP Editions, because I still have this urge to make books. So yeah, but different from Waterfall, I kind of extend my interest in the art media, like not only photography, but I also work with the artists who's in like sculpture or like painting or video arts and sorts. So yeah, from 2006, I started to make like more like artist books from then, and I'm gonna bring up two examples of the book. So in this book, the first part is Didi's work with like performance or sculpture, and in the middle it's like a two persons collaboration, like she did a little bit something and I finished up something together. And the final part is my works, drawing, she's like my sketch of her, of different shapes of Didi. And we even had this exhibition when we launched this book, but I'm the only artist there at the opening. I try to convince her, but I think she's not willing to. Yeah. Yeah. So this is part of the book. And for this one, the catalog is by the artist Luo Zhixing, and he's a longtime friend of mine, and we always want to do something together. And since he's major in sculpture, but then he turned his practice into more like assembling of different objects together, especially like found objects or the material you can find in a hardware shop or like the chemical stores. So this is giving us an idea to use these characters to make a new book about his work. So it's not really like a catalog of a exhibition. It's a catalog of you'll see. It's a like two-way catalog. From the front, it's like the catalog. Okay, from the front is the catalog for the material or the objects he used for his work. So you can find them by page number in the book, and then at the back it's like the actual catalog for the artist's work. So for this book, we did our research about all these things he used for his work and how they present as a catalog when you want to buy it. How they will photograph the objects and how they will they will do the layout on the catalog. So yeah, and because of the copyright, we don't really just want to grab the image. So we just visit the actual area that the artist always visit. And yeah, I think there's some people some photographs are showing the artist is in the photo. So we just visit this area which has all the hardware stuffs and material, and we just make our shooting by ourselves. And yeah, you can see we do all the works. And yeah, so like the reference, we just photoshopping them all by ourselves, just for the catalog. Yeah. So yeah, these are two examples for VIP editions, and I would like to talk more about my new books, but I don't have them ready on the slides. But I can tell you the story about this latest publication. It's a project by these two artists, Lin Yiqi and Lu Yiluan. They are two artists, and they decided to stay in a place called Zuoyin, which is in the south part of Taiwan. And that area has a special type of residential housing. It's called Military Dependence Village, which is like around 1949, like after the KMT party, they fled from mainland China to Taiwan. They have to settle all the soldiers and their families, so they chose different locations to build this kind of housing for them. But I think around 2000, there's a policy that the government decided to like renovate all those area. So but slowly, but around 2011, when these two artists they just traveled around Taiwan, and they just found Zuoyin, this place, they still have this kind of village, and it's that people still living in it. and one of artists, because she has a similar background, like she grew up in this kind of village, but the village she grew up is already gone, and so she felt she need to do something for the village they visit, so they just stay there longer to photograph or to document all the house, all the people they made there. So they were, because when they got there, they just heard the news that the government is going to knock down the buildings, but our government sometimes are really slow. So instead, like they think maybe just spend 1 or 2 months there. They stay there for almost 5 years. Yeah. So it's like a really long-term project for them. And yeah, the time they started to stay there is the time they just got into the graduate school for their master. So it's like a really like unstable, like they are like questioning themselves as an artist. So this 5 years is like a request, like journeying to themselves. So that's why they want to do publication to make it like official souvenir, I think, for them. Yeah, so you can have a look of this book. And apart from DMP editions, I'm still working on Waterfall, which is the one I started in the beginning. And after doing all these publications, I still think it's one of the best media to express your idea and to like transform or to spread it wider than yourself. And it's a good platform to present the work, whether it's like writing or photographs or yeah. So I was still trying to explore this possibility of publication. And so for Waterfall, I'm thinking to make it into vinyl, like, because it's already like an exhibition for me. I mean, it's like exhibition on the book. So, and since I'm busy doing other artist work and or artist book, I can only afford like publishing Waterfall once for maybe 1 year or 2 years. So I'm thinking, why not just make it like a biennial, like happening twice a year. And the way I'm thinking of it, it's like, well, I'm doing it as a exhibition, like on the pages, and like biennial you have like off-site projects program, and you have workshops, you have other like events happening. So for Waterfall, I'm thinking how I can explore the texture or the essentiality of in book as a media is. So I haven't think through really like ready, but I'm thinking to working with other media, like online media or like other publication, like other magazines, to work together to present like biennial, but it's like a mobile biennial, and which is presented only on papers. So that's I'm sorry now.
Good to see you all. Thank you for coming. I'm Anthony Tino. I'm the co-founder and co-director of Fully Booked, and we feel really honored to be here. So just want to say quick thank you to Jane and Hillary for having us, because we definitely think that Asia Art Archive in America is a great resource and have come to a lot of programming here, so we feel lucky to be part of this. So I thought I'd start with a map of the Middle East in Chinese. I thought that was a good place to start. And actually these formats are generally good for fully booked because we do a lot of things and there tends to be a lot of questions, so to kind of get into all aspects of it is really helpful. So Fully Booked is a project that I've been working on since late 2016, and it has become the central focus of kind of like my practice as a curator and my engagement with artist books. So before getting into the history, just a quick overview on who we are and what we do. So our official about is that Fully Booked is a unique and curated international platform for creative publication and artist books from or of the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia, anchored by 3 annual editions of the Dubai Art Book Fair, the flagship namesake fair, the first of its kind in the Gulf, premiered in 2017 in Al Serkal Avenue during the annual Dubai Art Week. So what began as a single pop-up during Art Dubai has actually kind of grown into a multifunctional project, which includes producing art book fairs. So this is a shot from 2018 when we returned to Al Serkal Avenue. So we have our yearly art book fair. We also produced an art book fair as part of the 2139 festival, which actually happens in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. So this is a shot from something that we called Art Books Jeddah. The other thing we do is we develop special archives with libraries and independent studios. So this is the reading room at Fikra Design Studio, which is a design studio in Sharjah, which is an emirate just north of Dubai. The other things we do is we co-produce artist commissions and publications. So this is actually from the first fair in 2017, and this is a mural commissioned with Nuf Al-Himyari, who's a Saudi photographer, and actually it does look quite nice there, and was like all donated material because we had no money, but so it is an artist commission, and I almost died putting that on the wall. But, and also in 2018, we produced a curated show of Arabic and Farsi typography that was called Haruf, and that was curated by our friend Yusuf Al-Ahmed, who's also a graphic designer and artist. So quickly, we want to talk about like where we are in the world, what region we're focused on. So this is kind of what's considered Menasa, but I have problems with this map because this isn't really the fully booked map. The fully booked map actually, well, first there's the UAE, just in case anyone needs to find it. And then this is kind of where we were going to for art book fairs and traveling to for projects in the past few years. And now, kind of like Daphne and I are here, but some of the publishers are here, so like, and then people ask us like, where are you guys based? And it's like, that's where we're based. Fully Booked is co-directed by myself and Daphne Toronto. As the map showed, she is in India for 9 months. And in 2018, we also instituted an advisory circle. So this is artists living, working in several countries, different communities. And we kind of feel that the advisory circle ensures that new publications, opportunities, and interests of the communities that we work with are at the forefront of our focus. So most decisions actually go before the advisory circle at this point. Oh look, I'm wearing the same jacket. and outside of our normal scope of work, we produce some special events in and around New York. So when we launched our online shop, we had like a little launch party there. And so the brief history, it's sort of like, well, how did you guys get to this point? So it was born out of a conversation I was having with Daphne at NADA, and she was working for a gallery called Carbon 12, which is one of the many galleries in this kind of art neighborhood in Dubai. And sort of the way Dubai works is that it's like a lot of the neighborhoods are kind of new new enough that there are incentives for things to kind of, or industries to kind of be clustered together. So Al Circal Avenue is an old warehouse district in something called Alcoz, and actually right outside of Al Circal Avenue it does get really industrial really fast, and that's actually where all the best hardware stores are if you're ever doing work in Dubai for anything. But it's kind of this built up, programmed art neighborhood. So we were talking to the gallerists, and I was like, oh, that sounds so cool, and they were just like, you guys should pitch something. And Daphne and I had worked together in artist books before. Well, not exactly, we met through artist books and zines, and we thought, well, you know, maybe something like this could be like the gap that's in the Art Dubai hemisphere. This is like our first graphic, and had drinks at Forlini's. And then we were like, yeah, we have to pitch this artist book thing that's going to happen in Dubai. And we started doing a lot of research. We thought about doing an exhibition centering around artist books would be the best way to go. And we also thought, you know, books can go in luggage, like we don't have to send shipping containers, we don't have to crate anything. A lot of these publishers will send us stuff in the region. But we were also thinking about like who's the group of artists that is not typically included in the major art fairs, just because Art Dubai is kind of you know, a more higher end art fair, who's not getting shows in the galleries, and we had a suspicion that those would be the same people who are also making unique artist books, and turns out to be true. But the other thing that I think is important is that if you kind of look at the map of where the major art book fairs are happening around the globe, that there tends to be a lot that happen in Europe and a lot in East Asia. So we kind of wanted to do something that would close the gap, that would also maybe attract people from both of those places, as well as in the Middle East. And so while we do say, you know, we focus on Menasa, we definitely, because of working in Dubai, feel like we do have a bit of an anchor in the Middle East more than anything. But we started putting out an open call. Al Circal was like, it has to be an open call, and it has to be a fair. So we were like, okay, let's try it. So this was my like Instagram, my now defunct Instagram. And since we didn't actually, you know, we'd never produced anything before, we were using these stock photos from Al Circal Avenue, from their other programs, and we were just like, all right, our branding is like green, it's dots. And then we worked with a designer who we have continued to work with in the past. Her name's Louiza, and she is Emirati, and she made us like a little graphic, and Yalla in Arabic basically means like let's go. So this was like a little motivational graphic we were using for a while. Made our own silk screens, made our own tote bags, and then we were able to produce this first fair. Basically the first fair was basically self-funded. We got some some support from Al Circal Avenue, but we actually had about like 20 exhibitors. Some people came from the States. There were a lot of local institutions that actually participated who felt like maybe their artist books also hadn't been been considered, like in the same way that their exhibitions were, or there were a lot of books on design and typography that kind of found their home at the fair. And there's just some more images of the fair. This is 2018, so we returned and we were able to do about twice as many tables. And just like quickly, at this fair we had people from UAE, France, the United States, Malaysia, and various other places throughout the Middle East, and returning exhibitors from Iran, which has always been really important for me, especially just like as an American. I think being able to work with Iranians is really important. We worked with Shama again for the mural, and then this was this year's fair. We got a slightly different warehouse and did more of a kind of a curated exhibition. There were actually some books from Kwun that were there, as well as books from Indonesia, and then had kind of like a retail space and an artist book and an art book fair in the back. So just to quickly talk about our current mission, I think it's also probably the best way to do it is to go through these frequently asked questions. So obviously the main one we get all the time is like, why Dubai? So there's aspects why Dubai was the right fit for the project, including its geographic location, large communities of Arab and Persian from other parts of the Middle East, large and active communities of first and second generation South Asian artists, as well as the Emirates, tolerance and acceptance of art and culture made it seem to be, and has made the fair, I think, successful in being able to interface with a broad range of cultures. And it creates a perfect scenario to produce a publicly engaged artist book event that celebrates cross-cultural dialogue. We have, exhibitor from Kuwait, exhibitors from New York. We strive to make fully booked an embodiment of cultural celebration. We try to amplify progressive voices from the Middle East, who often don't have a platform for that. And we think it allows people to have peer-to-peer relationships, oftentimes across political or even ideological borders. And I think, just as an example, we had this amazing group from Iran as exhibitors the first year, who we still work with. Youssef is Saudi American, an Emirati exhibitor. It's not kind of every day that you get to work across these cultural borders in the same room, so that's exciting. And I also think Fully Booked plays a role in communities where we live, like for example in New York, in creating a channel for people who are not familiar with the cultural accomplishments of individuals from Middle East, South Asia, to become curious and to continue to engage with the material, and in some circumstances even combat Islamophobia. Another question we get asked is like, what about working with artists from Iran? Like, what's the deal with that? On the right is like, this actually happens if you send someone a Venmo with the word Iran in it, it will get flagged. So that's like a real thing. And this is an image that by an artist who I really like. Her name's Tarbat Telepasan. Just putting that there because it's like Iran pride. So, obviously there's a lot of challenges with creating a platform, especially, as Americans, that supports the work of artists living in Iran. It also is more challenging to be an emerging artist whose ability to garner international support is becoming more and more difficult. So we try to utilize our position as a platform that exists within a free democratic society to ensure that hateful policies don't translate into hateful societal practices. so this is just an image of our table at the Brooklyn Art Book Fair, which I just thought was had a large amount of Iranian publications there, and this is Razan and Setare, and she is an Iranian artist who made a zine that we were showing. And we've also supported and contributed books to the exhibition before we were banned, which was focusing on artists affected by the travel ban, and donated books to, this was actually Iran's first art book fair, which was started by a previous exhibitor, fully booked, Hediye Ahmedi, and we donated a bunch of books from, or I should say that publishers donated their books and we organized transporting them there. And this was the display of like New York-based publishers. And the last question, or the last question I'm gonna, kind of, is do people really make art in places like Saudi? And this is an image by an artist named Rashid Al-Shashai. So we try to be a conduit for education, both within communities in the Middle East, as well in the United States, Europe, and Asia, for questions such as, do people really make art in Saudi Arabia, or are most of the artists in your shows male? Our answers tend to surprise people. So as an example, during Art Books Jeddah, we produced 2 free educational workshops, one led by Zainab Al-Mashat and Sarah Al-Farhan, and it was on zine making. And that's Sarah up there, and that is Zainab there. We had them in this sort of like outdoor pavilion that we designed and made zines. And this is the final product. So it was like each member actually did like a spread that got made into these kind of collaborative zines. And the other workshop was a build your own Arabic typography led by designer Mohammed Sharaf. And just kind of a side note that almost 100% of the students who signed up were women, and almost all of them were sort of new entrepreneurs in fields such as graphic design and fashion. So it's, I guess, something we're not used to reading about here. So this was during the workshop, and this is me just like exhausted and ready to collapse. And also, this is just really important. Mohammed and I both got al-bake, which is like this like fried chicken thing, and sent it to Daphne, like we were sitting across the table, and sent Daphne like the same photo at the same time. It's just like very important for understanding that fair. And then quickly, fully booked is basically the materials that we engage with. It's bigger than me and Daphne, and early on in our experience, we realized how important it was to promote the work from the region at home and internationally, on top of generating a point of convergence at the fair itself. So after our first fair, we did a special table at the Knockdown Center, and we kind of partnered up with Brown Book and Edge of Arabia, and Shauba Chang did a performance for us as part of the programming. We helped the Institute Aya to stock books in their bookshop, and that's the Institute of Arab and Islamic Art. And we've sort of taken it to places such as Hong Kong. This is at Books, and as we intend to move more deeply into publishing ourselves, we used our last Kickstarter, which was to fund this year's fair, as an opportunity to produce unique objects with artists that we've worked with in the past. So this is another thing we worked on with Shama. And I'm not going to get into all the detail about everything, but basically the text says, books are a student's best friend. And this is a bag we worked on with Zainab Izadiar and she has a press called, well, it's not a it's a apparel project called Work, Work, Work. And these were the benefit editions on display. And we also did a resew print with Somnath Bhat, and that print is called Cyborg DXB. And then lastly, just wanted to go through a couple of the titles that we are distributing. We distribute a lot of stuff, but there's some core titles that we feel like, are constantly on our tables, or are the things that we feel aesthetically drawn to. So this is Body Shop by Farah Al-Qasimi, and Farah is also part of our advisory circle, and it's published by Silent Face Projects. Not to go through the whole but basically Body Shop, it kind of looking a little bit at like the way like the female form is used in public spaces in kind of like a hyper real sense in the UAE. The other book that I wanted to show is Sarah and Zainab's book, which is called You and I, and it was an exploration in the theme of Arabism. And so they were, one is Kuwaiti and one is Saudi, and while they were coming from different countries, which are so close together, they actually realized all these differences in language. So they made this book as a kind of conversation piece that kind of unmasked some of those differences. We do carry and love the work of Hedia Ahmadi, who is a photographer from Iran, who also is the person who spearheaded the first Tehran art book fair. And this is just a spread from one of her books. We sell a lot of these mixtapes by Jordan Nasser, who's a Palestinian American artist. And one of the big book, it's actually a big book, that that got us really excited, like at the very beginning, is Ahmed Mader's Desert of Faran. There is a pared down version of it that was the Brooklyn Museum catalog up here, but the original one is really beautiful, and it's basically five or so years that the artist spent documenting this kind of infrastructural transformation of Mecca, and also the people, daily life within the city, and also just so we know too that photography has been a touchy thing in Mecca, so getting the permissions to do all this was extremely important, and that's something we've carried in the past. And then just to, I'm noticing that we have a font, but to quickly, so these are some of the art book fairs we've done in the past, and that we continue to do every year. So we try to keep like a huge schedule, and just to kill ourselves by going to all these fairs. And then another thing we're really happy about is all the libraries who've talked to us about having also certain gaps in their collections, or feeling like we're bringing something to them that they haven't seen before. So these are just some libraries we've been in touch with, and then that brings us to the end, and that's my favorite WeChat sticker.
I would like to introduce Kwun a little bit. I worked in Kwun, which is a historical compound, and this is a revitalization project that supported by Jockey Club, and then we would like to promote historic heritage and art and performing arts. I'm from the contemporary art team, and then we have a building called Taipei Contemporary. It's a gallery, and then we will curate several local and international exhibitions throughout the year, and also we will have our big event. It's called Booked Book Fair, and then we did our first book fair last year. We have over 60 publishers and artists coming over to Hong Kong and then showing their work, and also we have workshops and talks and performance as well. So first questions I would like to ask is about Shauba. I found that YouTube, YouTube publishes featuring geographically featured artists. How did you choose your artists to collaborate into your projects?
I think from the beginning till now, I still like preferring to work with people I know well, like the friend, like the artist friend I've been hanging out for a while, so I know him and he knows his work well. Then I got the concept and the picture to how is the best way to present the work.
But what is the challenge? Because the work you publish is quite different. Like there are some photo books and there's a text-based and some conceptual arts, and also there is a new book. It's people who from the subculture persons, so they are not professional artists maybe. And then is there any problems when you are communicating with them throughout the projects?
Most of the time, I got 100% trust from the artist, and once we have a different point of view about the presentation, we will just communicate, but maybe in a hard way. But eventually, they will just let me do my job.
Okay. How about Anthony? Like as a not only the book fair organizer but also a distributor, how did you choose or select the artists from the Middle East and also the South Asia?
Yeah.
How did you choose the artists to promote?
So I think how it started was we kind of thought that we would start with distributing artists who participated in the fair, and then realized that that was just such a small cross section. So we say that the platform is curated technically because it is things that we like, but we do obviously always take if people email us or contact us on Instagram, we'll always look at it, and I think that it depends on which part of the overall program. I think for the book fair we want it to be as open as possible. The distribution slightly less open because some things are a little bit harder to sell, and that kind of matters at a certain point. And then for things like commissions and that is super focused, and that's people whose work we've been following for a long time. So there's kind of a little bit of a hierarchy. That makes sense. Yeah.
As you mentioned, that it's difficult to sell at the moment. It's because of the location, or it's because of the content.
Yeah, sometimes I think what's great about what people make zines is that it's kind of this brain, especially zines are kind of hard to sell sometimes because they're this brain explosion of I'm gonna get this idea out there and it's gonna look crazy, and then you're trying to explain it to someone and they're I'm not seeing it, So we have I have a bunch of boxes of zines that are just I don't think they're ever gonna go anywhere that we've purchased from artists already. So we have to be a little bit mindful of it has to be something that actually moves as a distributor, because you don't want to have huge boxes of books.
So, but it would be better if you sell it in the Dubai Apple Fair because most of the audience are from the Middle East. Like the language will be better. It's better for them to understand because
Yeah.
some of the work is written by other language that maybe Asian people don't know. It's just based on your descriptions
Yeah.
and the ideas, and then so that they collect the book.
Yeah.
But maybe it's better to have Dubai Apple Fair so that you can distribute the work easily.
Yeah, that's true. I think yeah, there might be sometimes like people are like illiterate to some of the ideas happening just like culturally, this aside from just like the language. But sometimes I think that just some things get like a little bit too abstract even visually for people to, and it's like I like being able to support that work, but so it might not be the best to have that like in the distribution network, if that makes sense.
I found that DMP editions and also fully booked always travel around to different Apple fairs. So why Apple Fair is important to you? Why was to travel around to like Asian country to
Right.
promote your selection, and also why you come through to New York for selling your books?
I think Apple Fair is one way to distributing my books, and with traveling to different country or cities with Apple Fair, I get to reach out the people who enjoy books but in different region, which you can't really do it at home, like in your city, and you get to see. I mean, another point to do the book fair is like you get to see how people react of reading your book. That's the true feedback I would like to see.
Well, I think for us, like one of the, we don't have the big resources or like the years of working at distribution the same way like DAP or someone who, is like kind of like a proper distributor. I think the reason why people get excited to kind of like give us their books is this idea that like they're going to travel in all these places and interface with all of these different communities. So I think that, and also Daphne and I just like traveling and like interfacing with new communities to begin with. I mean, that's kind of like where the project even like spawns from. But I think there is this, and it was really interesting to see the way that the public was looking at our books, specifically in Beijing. It was like a really interesting conversations, and so we're just kind of interested to see like what meaning starts being created when you show that stuff. Maybe we're gonna do Italy this year and like a couple new fairs, so it's kind of an adventure.
So you face different audiences when you go into different like Apple Fair. What is the difference? Like you meet with different community. So can you tell any difference? Like New York Apple Fair, there are huge people
Sure.
coming, but in Hong Kong or in Beijing, there are so different target audience.
Yeah.
So what is the reaction with your selection?
What we experienced was that, we've been to a lot of places now, but like I definitely think my favorite audiences have been in Asia, because I think there's like a real excitement about print media. And in Beijing, I think we left with like one book, which was crazy. Like that never happens. And like people were like grabbing my like business cards off the there were also a lot of people there. It's like, but it was just like printed stuff was like, you could tell there was like a real excitement about it. And that's just, it's different than like the big fair here. I don't know. Kind of interested to hear.
I don't know. For me, I think I've already like the stage of people who's like crazy for books. I would prefer people who would talk more about what they think on books. And for me, I think for me, I didn't really notice the difference about the groups, or I only noticed that people who's getting more interested of the content of the book, like. So I think because I've been to like different cities like Shanghai, Tokyo, Hong Kong, London, and New York. And I find out that people in like Europe, like they talk really a lot about like they well, I mean people talk but they don't really buy it. They have their own thoughts about the topic or the book, and I enjoy the conversation of this, but so but I don't know, in Asia maybe because the language, so it's not that excitement for me of the interaction.
So is it joining Apple Fair is one of the most important distribution channels for you guys to promote your book? Apart from Apple Fair, do you have any other channels to selling your books?
For now, I think it's one of the most important way to promoting, but well, back when I'm doing Waterfall and now today, we have this like distributor both in Europe and in England. So book fair is like just for promotion. And but now because I'm working on my own, and in the beginning I'm thinking maybe I can only produce 1 or 2 titles per year, but now because there are more and more interesting projects coming up, and the artists I want to work with, so the titles I'm working on per year is getting more and more, and I think I don't have the time to handle it as like distributing them. So in the near future, I might just find a distributor to work with.
Because you went through the commercial or mainstream publishing, because Not Today is the magazine, so you went through the process. So you are now having more independent publications. So is it any different distribution situation in Taiwan now? How you, like, for example, you promote your book in the bookshops in different districts in Taiwan. Do you have any experience about you distribute your book in the bookshops? As you mentioned that you
the events.
Yeah.
For promotion, we do a lot of things like exhibition or talk or like workshop. So it depends on the book you work on. And when we're doing Not Today, the bookshops are like they are really supporting, so they will just place our book in the best position, and they also offer their like a showcase area to allow us to do more promotion for the magazine.
How about fully booked? Apart from joining Apple Fair, is it the only way to generate income?
No, I think art book fairs are the most important for us when it comes to sales, and we've tried, we do have an online shop, but I will urge everybody to not go to that online shop until I update it after the fair, so they don't.
Okay.
So I think because also we get a lot of the things that we carry and show are limited or hard to find, that it's hard to always be like pushing a web shop, because just the amount of edits you have to do per week. So kind of the easiest way is to like show up to a book fair with kind of like more special things. And yeah, we can't, because our model is we buy books off of the artist directly and then sell them. We don't, it wouldn't make sense, we couldn't make a cut off of selling to like through a bookstore or something like that, even though we have done like collaborative events to kind of like Import News is a place in Lower Manhattan that we did like a shelf takeover.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But we did, no one made money on that. It was just kind of like a way. Actually, it was sort of like our Kickstarter party. And like they sold a couple more coffees than they normally do. But yeah, so definitely I would say the book fair is the best best way that we can maintain the distribution aspect of Fully Booked, and we are actively looking for ways to sustain the other aspects of Fully Booked.
Yeah, I think so, totally agree. I think that art book fair is not only for sales, but also like trying to promote your philosophy of your publishers behind with the reader directly.
Right.
Like it's kind of a long-term process to educate the readers or the visitors to buying books or collecting a book, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also, I would like to jump into another topic. It's more because I worked in a printmaking studio before. I would like to talk more about materiality. As you already set up a risograph print studio before, and then you did a commission project with other artists,
right.
And also Shauba also having a collaborative project with other artists. So what do you think about the material? Like, do you have any challenge to talk with the artists that why using this kind of paper, what types of printing you use in Hong Kong? And this recent 5 years, risograph or traditional printing is kind of like blowing up. All the design students trying to use risograph as their medium to do their own work, no matter what it is. Like letterpress as well, and screen printing, and then we have quite a lot of like independent press setting up right now.
Right.
So, what is the situation in U.S. like scene making or like self-independent publishing in a certain like traditional printing?
So we've used Riso printing for like a couple fundraising editions, and they do sell well in certain contexts. I think that when we show at, places like the New York Art Book Fair, now it's sort of like oversaturated with Riso as a material that we actually find it hard to sell our Riso things. And so we actually, I feel like we have a little bit of a affinity towards like photo books. So, and there's still something about kind of like an offset printed photo book that I think is really beautiful and a little bit more traditional. And I think that, the Middle East is not, it's not like Riso crazy. Like there's maybe one Riso in the UAE, and I know the person who has it. But I think a lot of people do use these more traditional methods that still look really nice. But yeah, and then does that answer? Okay.
How about in Taiwan?
I think Taiwan is not as crazy as Hong Kong is, but still like the use of visual is growing for designer and also artists who are making things. But I think it's not. I think it stays the same. Like I mean people who's using visual, they started from a long time ago. So it's not like just one time trend or something in Taiwan.
Yeah, it's a trend in Hong Kong, and also it's because it's more convenient in comparing with screen printing or other printing techniques, and it's especially for this certain period in Hong Kong that they usually using as a medium for as a propaganda or to like express their voice about the protests. And how about online? Because you start from an online platform and then go back to the offline, and then you have to dealing with all the procedures. What do you think about Facebook and Instagram? It's now like everyone using like social media platform to do their own work or spending time on social media. Like, would you think that social media is a risk for the book publishers? Not many readers to like really concentrate on book publishing, or a potential treated as an alternative publishing platform?
Interesting. It's a really good question.
Will you
That's
use
like
a
multiple
Facebook?
questions.
Will you use a Facebook or Instagram as?
Well, yeah. So I do think that social media, I mean, I personally don't have a very positive view of social media, even though I do use it, and Daphne and I have had so many conversations about how Fully Booked interacts with social media, and we've come to the conclusion that like we really have to be posting on Instagram, and she's a lot better at posting on Instagram than I am for the project. But also the kind of the young people in the region that we're kind of working with are some of the highest social media users in the world.
Wow.
So like for example, like Saudi Arabia actually has the highest like YouTube user, or most YouTube views, or I don't know how you quantify that, but and then you'll notice that artists in the UAE will have, and kind of in the GCC will have like 150,000 Instagram followers. Like meanwhile, like I know a lot of artists here who are like doing pretty well and like are not on social media at all, right? So there is kind of like a constant like checking of it, or thinking that like the artist Instagram has kind of replaced the artist website or something like that. But I don't know, I'm kind of interested in how Shauba is using like web space, web spaces publishing. I think that's really interesting, probably more interesting than just thinking about social media or something like that.
I like the internet. That's for sure. That's how I started, like in the first place, because it's free and you can search a lot of things. You can find a lot of interesting people and things. And for me, I don't know. For me, it's like two different ways, because I'm kind of old-fashioned about publishing. So if I'm doing my books, I will do it like in a very physical way with this hard copy. And the social media or the internet, it's just a tool for me. It's not really became a way I'm publishing. It's just a way. It's just like a hidden tool for me to search about artworks or artists. I have like 5 or 6 Instagram accounts actually. which has different functions. So it's really like a just tool for me to do it. I'm not really like interacting through Instagram or Facebook with waterfall or DMT editions. So I'm still working on like what I should put it, like where I should put it, because I'm interested in how it acts, like how the social media acts as a functioning media, and I know it's really different, like how people perceive those things on, like you see things on screen and how you perceive things on your hands. So I'm still working on. Yeah. I think I'll figure out something.
Is there anyone has questions?
I have a question. Can you explain the name DMP Editions?
Oh, it's a name for Dear My Party.
Party.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. All right.
Okay, and thank you for coming and then